Morning. I'm Andy Halsall. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of POA Internet. As Marco says, I came here from Nairobi in Kenya. I didn't get lost. I came to a premium European tech conference specifically to tell you about Mary. Now, Mary is a Kenyan, and she's a great example of what a modern Africa is all about. So what's so special about Mary? Well, first, she's incredibly young. She's 19. That's the average age of a Kenyan. If you contrast that to Europe, the average age of a German is 44. So this incredibly young demographic is driving very rapid population growth. The population of Africa is about 1 billion people today. It's expected to be 2 billion people by 2050. And by 2050, 1 in 4 people on the planet will be African. The second thing about Mary is she's urban. Africa's undergoing the biggest urbanization in the history of the world. And by 2050, 13 of the 20 largest cities on the planet will be in Africa. So in many respects, Mary looks exactly like a young European or a young American. But there's 2 very important differences. Firstly, she has far lower disposable income. GDP per capita in Africa typically is a few $1,000s. Contrast that to Europe, where you're talking $20,000 to $50,000. And secondly, and most importantly, she's not connected. She's not on the internet. And that's what POA Internet is all about. We're trying to work out why don't Africans use the internet and put forward a solution to this. Now, for such a young and urban population, the statistics are quite shocking. Only 20% of Africans are online. 80% don't use the internet at all. But if you drill below that 20%, you find something even more concerning, which the average internet user in sub-Saharan Africa consumes less than 200 megabytes of data per month. Now, to put that in context, that's about 20 minutes of YouTube. Now, I'm sure everybody in this room, I can see some of you on your phones, are using internet this morning. And if you've done a Zoom call, a Teams call, you've almost certainly consumed 200 megabytes of data before breakfast. So this amount of data is very, very constraining. And it basically means Africans who are online aren't getting the full internet experience. And worse, this actually breaks down all of the internet business models. The hyperscalers, all of these models that are based on download an app for free, maybe upgrade to the premium version, maybe watch an advert to subsidize it, these all fail. If an app is 100 megabytes of data and you've only got 200 megabytes as your entire monthly allowance, that app is far from free. And so basically, all of the models that we've got used to in the West about how people use the internet, how people adopt the internet, how you make money out of the internet are failing. Now, solving this problem is a massive opportunity. Firstly, there's a very large commercial potential. The internet connectivity market is estimated at about $19 billion, and that's expected to double over the next 10 years. In addition, solving this has a huge social requirement. The internet is such a fundamental enabler now for modern existence. It drives trade, social inclusion, education. Every business at this conference is almost certainly dependent on the internet. So if that doesn't exist, modern existence doesn't really exist. And so if we leave Africa on the wrong side of the digital divide, that will have profound implications for Africans, but also the world as a whole. So what's causing this market failure? Well, it comes down to 2 things. Firstly is affordability. So that has 3 elements to it. The first is that obviously Africans have lower disposable income, so services need to be priced at a point which is acceptable to their pocket. The second is that Africans tend to purchase hand to mouth. And so the traditional ways of selling internet, large upfront fees, big commitments, long contracts, bulk discounting, these things don't resonate and they cause frictions to purchasing. And then the third is interlinked with the second big lever, which is availability. For most people in urban environments in Africa, you can get internet access, but it's limited to cellular, 3G, 4G, 5G. And the problem with this technology is it's great for mobility, but it doesn't deliver a lot of data very efficiently. And so what that means is the cellular operators charge per megabyte, per gigabyte of data consumed. And what that says to hand-to-mouth purchasers is that this is a very expensive, scarce resource, and it basically scares people away. Now, if you contrast that to how internet is consumed in Europe, in the US, in more emerged markets, you basically buy internet in two forms. You have fixed-line subscription, and that is where you consume most of your internet. 85% of all internet is consumed in the home. And that's where you stream, that's where you watch your movies, where you do your video gaming, where you do your Zoom calls, your Facebook. All of these high data activities occur there. The cellular network is about convenience and mobility between these things. But if you only have the mobile network, then you're missing out, and that's what's failing in Africa. The infrastructure that's built up in the West over the last 100 years, fundamentally the wired network, has simply been stepped over in Africa and is missing. And that's what needs to be solved, and that's what POA Internet provides. We offer a fixed-line broadband service. This will be very, very familiar to everyone in this room. The service offering feels like a fiber-to-the-home offering. We offer exclusively a residential service, and this service, very importantly, has unlimited data. It removes this constriction of not being able to consume. We offer this exclusively into underserved communities, primarily low-income urban areas, and these are communities which are fundamentally ignored by the incumbent providers. And the results of this speak for themselves. Our service is 95% cheaper than 4G and 5G services, and as a result, our customers consume 145 times more data than the average African. And the amount of consumption is very, very similar to the amount consumed by European or US consumers. So how do we do this? We have 4 elements to our solution. The first is we use a set of hybrid network technologies. We're not dependent on one way of delivering the internet. We use a combination of fixed wireless access, 5 gigahertz, Wi-Fi, free space optics, and all of this means we have a very, very low capex per customer connected. We then use this technology to build the last mile infrastructure into these communities. This piece of infrastructure is simply missing. And most of the cost of internet delivery is in that last mile piece. It costs 2 cents to get a gigabyte of data from Amsterdam to Nairobi. It then becomes $2 in the hands of the cellular operators because of the cost of that cellular network. Our equivalent cost is 5 cents. So $2 to 5 cents. We then have a proprietary software platform which drives and connects all of this technology together, but it also automates a lot of our operations. And that fundamentally gives us a very low OpEx cost. And then we package this all together with some very innovative pricing models, and we deliver it through community-centric services. So most of our team come from the communities where we operate in. This feels like a very community-centric service. That gets huge community buy-in and stickiness. What this gives us is the lowest cost to serve. The cost of all that lower CapEx and that OpEx is fundamentally significantly lower than anybody else in the industry. That means we can go into these communities first and profitably. That allows us to gain the early adopters in the communities who become great brand ambassadors and pass the service on through word of mouth, and we get a very rapid ramp of customers. In turn, that gives us economies of scale. And that then reduces the cost to serve even further. So we get a very virtuous circle that goes round and round, and this flywheel builds strong economic moats and great competitive differentiation. We've now deployed this solution past 1.5 million homes in Nairobi. We're scaling nationally in Kenya. We're now in Mombasa and a number of secondary cities. We're growing at 90% CAGR, and we're on the cusp of profitability. We have industry-leading churn, not just in Africa, but across the other continents as well. And this model has attracted Africa's leading VCs and infrastructure investors, such as Novastar and Africa 50. And we're also supported by the development finance institutions of the Belgian, US, German, French, and Netherlands governments. We've raised $38 million into the business so far, and we're on a trajectory to become the largest fixed-line provider in Kenya. We have plans to expand across East Africa, and we have a number of service innovations that will be coming in the next year, which should speed this deployment up even further, deepen those economic moats, and make this service even more affordable. So on behalf of the entire POA Internet team, I'd like to thank you for letting an African invade a European conference. And I'd like to continue the conversation with anyone who would like to help us continue to get the next billion Africans online. Thank you.